Good afternoon. My name is Hayden Ludlow. This is for Differentiated Literacy Instruction, or SEC-350, through Grand Canyon University. This is the Literacy in Culturally Diverse Classrooms podcast. Here today, we're going to be focusing on world history, as that is my major personally with secondary education. So I feel that it is most applicable to be looking down this path in ways that we can encourage literacy in a culturally diverse classroom. First off, we're going to start by identifying 5 characteristics of students that we will need to pay attention to in the classroom. These are going to be the student's level of attention, their ability to connect multiple concepts or to create inferences, their impulse control, comprehension, and their empathy. Now, all of these are very important for any classroom, but especially in world history where you're learning about very heavy topics, ones that you need to be very sensitive of towards others and their feelings on those subjects, as well as being just a regular high schooler, a young adult, being able to control your emotions and your actions in an appropriate manner based on the situation you are in. The first standard we are going to be looking at is an English language arts standard. This is for 9th and 10th graders, found in the reading literacy standards. It is RL23. This is that students are expected to build upon and continue to apply concept learned previously. Now, this is very important because when we are learning about world history, not only are you learning about one point in time, but you are learning about the events that lead up to that event as well as the events that follow it. So, for instance, when you're looking at World War II and America's involvement in World War II, you're not just looking at the bombings that happened in Japan. You are looking at the start of World War II, the events that led up to the attack on Pearl Harbor, the bombings then that followed in Japan, in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, as well as the treatment of Japanese Americans following those events and moving into the future. The world history standard that I pulled to go along with this comes from the World History and Civilizations section. It is WH65, and this is examines and explains World War II, the events that lead up to, and the effects or impact of this event on the rest of the world. Again, just used an example there with our English language arts example or standard. But what we're going to be focusing on more specifically are the persecution of Jewish peoples in the during World War II under Hitler's regime. Now, to support the study here, we are going to be using 2 books. Our first book that we're going to be looking at would be The Diary of Anne Frank, written by Anne Frank, as this is a first-hand account from World War II that explores the anti-Semitism, the persecution of Jews, the fear they felt, and the way that they had to survive during this time. It also allows you to connect more personally with someone who was there firsthand experiencing these things, really playing into building upon that empathy skill that we mentioned at the beginning. The other book we're going to be looking at is written by Thomas Kelly, and this is Schindler's Ark or Schindler's List, depending on the print that you have of it. Follows very closely to the movie of the same title. This will be used for people, this uses people in real events, but with fictional dialogue added to just fill in the blanks that were not recorded. Here, students will be able to use their listening and speaking skills in different exercises, where maybe we could have one student in a pairing read The Diary of Anne Frank, one reads Schindler's Ark, and they come back to one another and they summarize the main ideas and they compare and contrast the events that they saw in the story, the characters they interacted with, and the events that transpired, being able to find, okay, what is rooted more in fact and what did we add to kind of fluff this up, and be able to differentiate that when they move forward reading texts of their own. Now, talking again about empathy, we need to be able to identify bias, both in ourselves as educators, but also in our students. I think the very first thing that needs to happen is that you must address that bias is everywhere. This way, students will understand that they have bias themselves, as do any text or pieces of evidence that they find to support themselves when doing assignments. We also need to understand that other people have these biases And while they may feel that way, doesn't make them right, doesn't make us wrong. It is something that we just need to be able to live with. Additionally, there are differences between students in the classroom, whether that is cultural, physical, their education level. Again, best thing to do with this, address it right away with your class. That way they understand that not everyone is always going to be operating at the same level, operating on the same wavelengths, I guess, as well, where I may have thoughts on an event in history that you do not share the same feelings on. This also is going to encourage students to explore more, especially in a world history class where they get to little tidbits of all these different cultures from throughout the world. It's going to encourage them to explore more. That way they can have a better understanding. And finally, it's going to help them find ways to connect with other students, to connect with different parts of history, and connect with their education as a whole. I hope that all this information was helpful for you. Looking forward to doing more assignments like this in the future, where we get to explore different ways to approach learning in the classroom. Again, I'm Hayden Ludlow. This is for SEC 350 with Grand Canyon University. Have a great day.